Just before I gave this talk, Pastor Rob asked me what I'd call it. I didn't have a title for it. So it's called the Astronaut One, and we'll find out soon enough about that. Let's turn to start, though, to Proverbs Chapter One. It's a nice little introduction to a talk. Proverbs 1, starting in verse 2. To know wisdom and instruction, to perceive the words of understanding, to receive the instruction of wisdom, justice, judgment, and equity, to give subtlety or prudence to the simple, to the young man knowledge and discretion. A wise man will hear and increase learning, and a man of understanding will attain wise counsel. I like that because it's good words and means, listen up to someone who's been there, done that. You might learn something, but also sort of very pertinent to what I'm about to talk about. So we'll talk about astronauts, funnily enough, and what we can learn from them. I mean, it's not something that you normally associate with the Christian, and you may change your mind after this. I don't know. Dave said the best part of the talk's the testimony, so you've got nothing to worry about here. Has anyone heard of a person called Chris Hadfield? Chris Hadfield. A few have. He's. I'm going to read a little blurb out of the back of his book that I'm going to read a few excerpts out of. He is one of the most seasoned and accomplished astronauts in the world, and probably out of the world as well. He's a top graduate of the US Air Force Test Pilot School in 1988 and a US Navy Test Pilot of the Year in 1991. Pretty good credentials. A test pilot, what they do is they learn how to lose control of airplanes and then try and regain control of airplanes. It's not something that's for everybody, I can tell you that. Colonel Hadfield was selected to be an astronaut in 1992. He was Capcom, I'll get back to that later, for 25 shuttle launches and served as director of NASA operations in Star City, Russia. He was the chief of robotics at the Johnson Space Center in Houston and the chief of the International Space Station's operations from 2006 to 2008. He also served as commander of the International Space Station from December 2012 to May 2013. So he's got quite a few notches in his belt, if you like. This is my addition. He also released a zero-gravity version of David Bowie's Space Oddity, filmed aboard the International Space Station. If you have 5 minutes, check it out. It's something I wish I could do. All right, so I'm going to read a few passages from his book titled An Astronaut's Guide to Life on Earth. And it's a good book. It's an interesting read. It gives you a real insight into the life of an astronaut, where they get to, where they go, but it also offers some parallels. As you read through it, it's got some interesting points there. Parallels with our walk with the Lord. Well, you can draw them out, which I am, so it has to be. We may not be astronauts, but we do have a goal that is not of this world. It is something, one day we'll meet the Lord in the air, and that's, Pastor Darrell says, we'll be rocketed up. Well, you don't get more rocketed up than that. All right. So why don't you turn to Deuteronomy 31, just because that'll save some time later, and I'll try and shoot through this. I mentioned he was a Capcom. A Capcom is the capsule communicator in the old Gemini space thing, or more often the spacecraft communicator. He was the direct point of contact for the crews up in space to the ground. So when you think of say Apollo 13 and everything that went wrong, Capcom was the person who spoke to them and who everything went through. So there's quite a lot of responsibility on this. Now he was the Capcom for 25 shuttle launches, which roughly works out about 20% of all the shuttle launches that ever happens. This is a pretty responsible job. So it sort of gives you an insight of how capable this guy was, because he had to know what they were thinking and what all the systems do and what the people on the ground are doing and how it brings it all together. So there's this Capcom, the person who is the conduit for all the talk. Who does that sound like? 1 Timothy chapter 2, verse 5 says, "For there is one God and one mediator between God and men, the man Jesus Christ." Now, I don't want to be trite or anything, but Jesus is Capcom. He is the guy who everything goes through. And the instruction comes back through the Spirit that he made available to us. Jesus, who said himself, "No man comes to the Father but by me." So where the instruction is, it came through him. It came through him. The Holy Spirit came through him. Everything that we know to be real is because of him. And everything that we need to do and need to ask God of, well, he's the mediator, he's the go-between, he's the person that you talk to get something done. It's pretty good. It's a small little thing. Well, it's not a small little thing. It's one job, but it's the most important job. All right. I'm going to read you, if you want to turn to 1 Hadfield, chapter 3, if you're reading along. This chapter is titled, quite encouragingly, "The Power of Negative Thinking." Okay, so as astronauts, they go through a whole bunch of stuff. I'll try to pick this out. Later in the book, or elsewhere in the book, he says, "In my experience, fear comes from not knowing what to expect and not feeling you have any control over what's about to happen. When you feel helpless, you're far more afraid than you would be if you knew the facts. If you're not sure what to be alarmed about, everything is alarming." Pretty true. Okay, so in the book here it says, I'm just going to bring it up here. During my last stay at the ISS, I was jolted into consciousness in the middle of the night. A loud horn was blaring. For a couple of seconds, I was in a fog trying to figure out what the unpleasant noise was. Fair enough. There were 4 of us in the American segment of the station then, and like prairie dogs, we all poked our heads up out of our sleep pods at the same time to look at the panel of emergency lights on the walls to tell us whether we should be concerned about depressurization, toxicity, or some other potentially fatal disaster. Suddenly, all of us were wide awake. That deafening noise was the fire alarm. When you think of a fire and how oxygen fuels the fire, being trapped in a place where there's limited oxygen is not where you want to be. And so when these things happen, they are fairly serious. Now, I'm not going to go through the whole story because we could be here all the rest of, I'll turn into Paul and someone have to fall out the window. So they were woken by this fire alarm in space. Now, they go through a whole bunch of training to train the fear out of them, basically, to deal with it, to deal with the situation. Turned out that this was a dud fire alarm. It was a lemon. Something was wrong with it because they investigated it. Nothing was wrong. They all went back to sleep. It went off again. It was something they dealt with and something they got fixed, but it was a problem. But they train for this, how to make decisions methodically until the solution is found. That's what astronauts do. Each time they are successful, their comfort zone expands just a little further, and I like that. And I'll talk about that a little longer, but we're in Deuteronomy chapter 31, I hope. Verse 8, and the Lord said, am I in Deuteronomy 31? He is the one who goes before you. He will be with you. He will not leave you nor forsake you. Do not fear nor be dismayed. Don't worry about it. God's with you. He's gone before you. Don't worry about it. Don't fear. I've got this worked out for you. Trust in me. This is where it comes from. I won't get you to turn to it for time, just in case we run out. But Isaiah 43 says, "Fear not, for I have redeemed thee. I've called thee by name. Thou art mine. When you pass through the waters, I will be with you. And through the rivers, they shall not overflow thee. When you walk through the fire, you shall not be burned, neither shall the flame kindle upon thee." Which is very apt towards a fire in a space station, because the destiny. But getting out of your comfort zone, I've never ever liked that term. It doesn't sit well with me. But the perspective of expanding what I'm comfortable with really sort of works for me because, hang on a second, I'm more capable to deal with this now instead of I'm just going to jump into this. Well, sometimes you do have to jump and the Lord's there. But if you put the effort in to expand what you're doing, you're more likely and willing to go out and actually do something. You're more likely to talk to that person on the door knock. I was telling Pastor Rob, we went out and I said, this isn't my thing, but if I never do it, it will never be my thing. So I'm pretty glad I went out with the pastor. that was good. But that's expanding my comfort zone so that I'm, next time, I'm more comfortable doing that. I've done it before. I know what to expect. Or I know what not to expect. Or people who knock on the door don't know what to expect, and I've got the front foot there. Whatever. There's many things we can prepare ourselves within the Lord. That helps us to deal with the situation. Getting built up in the Lord, getting your hands dirty, if you like, just getting out there and doing something. Expand our experiences, expand our comfort zone. Not trusting our instincts. You can medically, you can train this out of you. It's called conditioned or acquired reflex, something that is developed through frequent repetition. So, coming to a meeting, prayer, reading your Bible, talking to someone about the Lord. It's not something normal people do. You know what I mean, and also what I don't mean. But doing this, acquiring this reflex, acquiring this habit, acquiring this condition to actually put the Lord first and think about and do something, it becomes a habit. It becomes something that you do because it's the right thing to do to deal with the situation. It is. It's the right thing to talk about the Lord and to deal with it His way and not your way, because you'll see the blessings come from that. All right. In 2 Timothy, don't turn to it because it's just one verse here. 2 Timothy 2, verse 15 says, "Study to show yourself approved unto God, a workman that needs not be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth." Knows what they're doing, knows what it's on about. There's a job to do. They're not afraid to do it because they're equipped. We can read in Philippians 4, "Be anxious for nothing. Peace of God which passes all understanding. Will guard your hearts and minds." We've got all that. Don't think negatively about the things that are before you or things that need to get done. Just trust God will give you the answer. God will give you the direction when you seek Him, when you step out in faith, when you involve yourself, when you do the work that you need to do. Trust that the Lord will do it, and He's equipped you to do it, and that will be the case. All right. I'm going to go to another scripture. Why don't we turn to Isaiah chapter 28. I'm going to go to another place in my book. I'm reading this off my Kindle. I need to find it. 6. Location 1096 if you're reading along at home. All right. This chapter was called "Sweat the Small Stuff." Little details that can seem trivial in our lives. We often take them for granted that it's small. I know how to do this. I can deal with this. I'll do it when I get home. I'll do it on the weekends. I'll do it after dinner. And sometimes you can. But there are things that we shouldn't take for granted. I'll pray tomorrow. I'll go to the meeting next week. I'm tired. I've had a long day. I've been standing up in my desk for 6 hours, 3 of which were doing nothing because Citrix was down today. It's just, I can't not go to the meeting tonight, as it turns out. The little things, but you pay attention to the little things because they are important, and those little things are what keeps you going and doing what you need to do. Make sure that we take note of them and do them right, and make sure that we are doing them and not leaving things unattended, not seeing the person who's just come into the meeting and they're just standing in the corner and no one's talking to them, because someone else always goes to talk to them. Well, I better go talk to them because no one's talking to them. Just the little things that come up. In the book, Commander Hadfield talks about what NASA calls the flight rules, which are the hard-earned body of knowledge recorded in manuals that list step by step what to do if X occurs and why. It's interesting, and on a geeky engineering kind of side of things, it is very interesting. Okay, so I'm going to read from the book here. One reason we're able to keep pushing the boundaries of human capability, yet keep people safe, is that the flight rules protect against the temptation to take risks, which is the strongest when momentum has been building to meet a launch date. Okay, so you think of a space shuttle. The Soyuz, which the Russian rockets, can launch in just about any weather, but the shuttle was a much less rugged vehicle, so there was ironclad launch criteria: how windy it could be, how cold, how much cloud cover, clearly spelled out minimally accepted weather conditions for a safe launch. Okay, so we're sort of looking at, we were quite the opposite of that on the weekends. Like, is it going to rain or we're going out anyway? Is it cold? We're going out anyway. Okay, so it's tipped it on its head, but it's still there. We came up with them when there was no urgency or pressure and there was enough time to pull on every string and analyze every consequence. We had to invoke them for about 1/3 of all launches. So consider that's 135 shuttle launches. What's a third of 100? I don't know, 45, something like that. However many, they called off the launch on the day and they had to do it again. Having hard and fast rules and being unwilling to bend them was a godsend on launch day, when there was always a temptation to say, sure, it's a touch colder than we'd like, but let's just try anyway. Okay, so it's a bit cavalier, but that's what he said. When people are excited to put an explosion on the ground and make it lift something into the air, you want to see the fireworks, but you don't want to see the fireworks. It said, I had helped with so many launches at the Cape, it's Cape Canaveral or Cape Kennedy or whatever they call it now, that I fully expected a weather delay when I got strapped into my seat on Atlantis in November 1995, ready for my first trip to space. Sure enough, 5 minutes before we were supposed to launch, it was called off. I mean, how would you be? You're sitting strapped into a space shuttle. I mean, like, doesn't get much cooler than that. You're about to go and someone said, it's off. This is the kicker, the next sentence. The weather was actually beautiful in Florida that day, but it was bad at all of our overseas emergency landing sites. The chances that we'd have to abort the mission after liftoff were extremely slim, but the rules were clear. We needed to have the option. No one aboard was delighted with this turn of events, but there wasn't a lot of grousing. After so many years of training, what was one more day? And that's the good thing about habitually sweating the small stuff. You learn to be very, very patient. And we did, in fact, launch the next day. So there you go. The rules, the guidance, the things that keep you safe are here. And when you start to bend those rules for your own convenience, that's when things don't always work out for you. Because if that doesn't need to apply to me now. Well, it does need to apply to you now, because the Lord said, stay away from all appearance of evil. Don't turn to the left. Don't turn to the right. Don't get sidetracked. Keep focused on what is right. And if this is not right for you, stay away from it. Don't press the button. Don't run too hard at it. Be patient. God's flight rules. Pastor Darrell often says, the Bible, the basic instructions before leaving Earth. It's NASA. I mean, I've got to put that in. The hard-earned body of knowledge recorded by those who went before us to help us to be good astronauts for God. We can build upon this experience. We can build upon this wisdom. We can learn. We can teach others. We can show them. We know it's there because it's there for our benefit. All scripture is given for these things. Isaiah 28, we're there, aren't we? Verse 9 says, whom will he teach knowledge? And whom will he make to understand the message? Those just weaned from the milk, those just drawn from the breast. For precept must be upon precept, precept upon precept, line upon line, line upon line. Here a little, there a little. They're written there, and you have to follow them. It's sweating the small stuff, the little bits that you've got to do to understand it and make sure that you're following it. Let's turn to 2 Peter. Chapter 1. Words we know, but words we should hear. Verse 3. As his divine power has given to us all things that pertain to life and to godliness, through the knowledge of him who has called us to glory and to virtue, by which we have been given us exceeding great and precious promises, that through these you may be partakers of the divine nature, having escaped the corruption that is in the world through lust. So all this teaching, all this knowledge that we've been given, the flight rules, the things that we follow, the little bits that we need to do to step in the right direction, to keep pressing on towards what is right, the mark of the prize of the high calling of God. But this, for very reason, giving all diligence, add to your faith virtue, and to virtue knowledge, and to knowledge temperance or self-control, to self-control perseverance, to perseverance godliness, and to godliness brotherly kindness, and to brotherly kindness charity. Add these things, because these are the things you need to do. These are the little flight rules that this, then you add this, and then you go up and you expand your comfort zone, and you know what's right. And when you know what's right, you know what's not right, and when not to do what is not right, which is always not to take the opportunity to do what is not right. In 1 Timothy, we would read about being an example and neglecting not the gift that was in you, that you save yourself and those who would hear. You can teach them, you can show them what is expected, you can show them what the rules are, if you like. I'll read a bit more from this. It is NASA's fanaticism about details and rules may seem ridiculously finicky to outsiders, but when astronauts are killed on the job, the reason is almost always an overlooked detail that seemed unimportant at the time. Now we'll skip down. Talking about the Russians began wearing pressure suits for launch and landing only after a ventilation valve came loose and a Soyuz capsule depressurized during re-entry in 1971, killing all 3 cosmonauts on board, likely within seconds. A valve went pop and they were dead. Shuttle astronauts started wearing these pressure suits only after the Challenger exploded during launch in 1986. And in the case of both the Challenger and the Columbia, the one that disintegrated in re-entry, seemingly tiny details, a cracked O-ring, a dislodged piece of foam caused terrible disasters. Don't overlook the little things. And if something's not right, don't let that cracked O-ring be the thing that ruins your day and the day, and the lives of other people, because, it was frozen and cracked. And, thawing out and putting massive loads of fire in it was enough to blow up a whole rocket. It's pretty sobering. This is why individually and organizationally we have the patience to sweat the small stuff. This is us. This is why, as a group, we make sure we do everything as right as we can make it, because we've learned the hardest way how much little things matter. It's salvation. And that's what we want to make sure that not just myself or you, but those around us, those who are still to come, can experience the same thing that we are in the same great way that we do. All right. Last chapter I want to look at. Let's turn to Matthew 23. This chapter was entitled, Aim to be a Zero. All right, Matthew 23. We'll pick it up in verse 2. It says, the scribes and the Pharisees sit in Moses' seats. Therefore, whatever they tell you to observe, that observe and do, but do not according to their works, for they say, for they do and do not. They bind heavy burdens, hard to bear, and lay them on men's shoulders, but they themselves will not move them with one of their fingers. But all their works they do to be seen by men. They broaden their phylacteries and enlarge the borders of their garments. They love the best places at feasts, the best seats in the synagogues, greetings in the marketplaces, and to be called by men, Rabbi, Rabbi. Do not be called Rabbi, for one is your master, your teacher, Christ, and you are all brethren. Do not call anyone on earth your father, for one is your father, he who is in heaven. Do not be called teachers, for one is your teacher, Christ. He who is the greatest among you shall be your servant, and whoever exalts himself will be humbled, and he who humbles himself will be exalted. I think we can sort of see where this might be going. No, except I don't know where I'm going. I pressed the wrong button. Bear with me. 2, 3, 2, 2. All right. Here you go. This is an excerpt from the book again. A friend of mine was once in a crowded elevator in Building 4 South at Johnson Space Center in Houston when a senior astronaut got on and just stood there, visibly impatient, waiting for someone to divine that he needed to go to the 6th floor and push the button for him. I didn't spend all those years in university to wind up pushing buttons in an elevator, he snapped. Incredibly enough, someone did it for him. This incident made such a big impression on my friend that I heard about it, and probably a lot of other people did too. For me, it was a cautionary tale about the pitfalls of ever thinking of yourself as an astronaut or as a doctor or whatever. To everyone else, you're just that arrogant guy on the elevator craving significance. Okay. I'll keep going on. I will. Over the years, I realized that in any new situation, whether it involves an elevator or a rocket ship, you will almost certainly be viewed in one of 3 ways. As a -1, actively harmful, someone who creates problems. Or as a 0. Your impact is neutral and doesn't tip the balance in one way or the other. Or you'll be seen as a +1, someone who actively adds value. Everyone wants to be a +1. Everyone wants their Kindle to stay on when they're reading it. Of course, everyone wants to be a +1, but proclaiming your +1-ness at the outset almost guarantees you'll be perceived as a -1. Sorry, here we go. Regardless of the skills you bring to the table or how you actually perform. This might seem self-evident, but it can't be because so many people do it. So many people are quite eager to tell you how good they are. And in doing so, turn you off straight away to any benefit that they might bring to the table. It says, no astronaut, no matter how brilliant or brave, is a solo act. You can't be the best and do it on your own. You can't walk into a room and say, I'm the best, and expect everyone to go along with you. I'll just skip on to the next bit before I go to the scripture. I'm not going to find page or location. Just bear with me. Talk amongst yourselves. 2, 3, 6, 2. All right. Okay. Later, when you understand what you are and what you're doing, who you are, and can make an outstanding contribution, there's considerable wisdom in practicing humility. This is straight from the book. It's pretty good. If you really are a +1, people will notice, and they're even more likely to give you credit for it if you're not trying to rub their noses in your greatness. And that's exactly what we read the Pharisees don't do, because they were quite eager to tell everybody how good they were and what they should be doing and not doing it, taking the best seats, making the loudest noises and proclaiming themselves. But they were the ones who were corrupting the word of God. They were the ones who were corrupting the people by telling them to do things that didn't need to be doing. So, the benefit of aiming to be a zero is it's attainable. You can walk into a room and not make an impact. You can walk into a room and not make a problem. But you walk into the room with the attitude of not making it a problem, not making an impact, just going about your business. You're actually being a +1. You're actually being helpful. You're actually being useful. You're actually being the person that people want around to do that. We're in Matthew, just turn back a few chapters to chapter 6. Almost there, so that's good. Matthew 6, verse 4 says, your charitable deed may be in secret, and your Father who sees in secret will himself reward you openly. And when you pray, you shall not be like the hypocrites, for they love to pray standing in the synagogues and the corners of their streets, and they may be seen of men. Assuredly, I say to you, they have their reward. But you, when you pray, go into your room, into your closet, and when you have shut your door, pray to your Father who is in the secret, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you openly. When you go about the business of the Lord, when you go about seeking the Lord, and you don't make a big fuss about it, you don't make a big look at me about it, you just do what needs to be done. And God, who sees that you're being a zero, makes you a +1. He makes you, he loves to see it, and that is important. And he wants to see that. He wants to know that you're doing that. In Proverbs 15, we'd read, the fear of the Lord is in the instruction of wisdom, and before honor is humility. Practice not being that look at me person, but being the person who's, I'm just going to do what I need to do. I'm going to be involved in the business of the Lord. And that's where it's going to elevate you up, because no one likes to show off. No one should expect to be revered just because they're capable of doing something. We said it's not a solo act. You can't do it on your own. If no one's there to put you into line if you need, or give you some direction, if there's no checks and balances, if there's no guidance, if there's no direction, if there's no correction, if there's no, I'm actually not getting this right because I should be going here and I'm a bit off here to steer it across. If there's none of that, then we're done for. You go off track, and once you're off track, you're off track. And a little degree after a long time is a long way off. Make those small corrections, sweat the small stuff, make it right now before it becomes a big problem later on. And I think being part of the fellowship, being involved in the Lord's work is that. It keeps you on track. Hearing the word, hearing it preached, reading it, seeing a testimony, seeing someone's life change because they look to the Lord. That encouragement gets you back on track. Get you, doing what needs to be doing, making your contribution wherever you can, and that's useful. And that's, the humility that we need to show, but that's the zero becoming a +1 in the Lord's eyes. I won't read in for the sake of time. Maybe we should, just because it's a good example. Colossians chapter 4. It's a list of +1s. +1s that you can't pronounce. Tychicus, a beloved brother, faithful minister and fellow servant of the Lord, will tell you all the news about me. I'm sending him to you for this very purpose, that he may know your circumstances and comfort your hearts. With Onesimus, a faithful and beloved brother who is one of you, they will make known to you all things which are happening here. Aristarchus, my fellow prisoner, greets you, with Mark, the cousin of Barnabas, about whom you received instructions. If he comes to you, welcome him. And Jesus, who is called Justus. These are my fellow workers for the kingdom of God, and of all the circumcision, they have proved to be a comfort to me. Epaphras, who is one of you, a bondservant of Christ, greets you, always laboring fervently for you in prayers, that you may stand perfect and complete in the will of God. It keeps going. But I bear him witness that he has a great zeal for you, and those who are in Laodicea and those in Hierapolis. Luke, the beloved physician, and Demas greet you. It goes on. It's a bit of a list of people who are who? Who's this guy? Oh, I have to tell you about this guy because you don't know about him. But he's doing such a good job for the Lord that he's not big naming himself. But he is such a plus one because he's praying for you. He's doing a fervent work. He's caring for the needs of those who are doing it. He's being your comfort. He is everything that you don't know he's doing. And he's doing it as unto the Lord. And that's a if that's the mention you get somewhere there, that's pretty good. Right, so I'm going to summarize this and hand back to Dave, I guess. Expand your comfort zone. Don't get stuck in the thing, but add to it little by little. And as you do that, you can withstand all the things. You know what to expect. You know how to deal with the situation. You're not alone. You know that the Lord will bless you there. Prepare yourself to what the Lord throws at you. Sweat the small stuff. Follow the flight rules. Make sure you're doing all the little things that need to get done. All the things that are important, even if they seem significant. If you need to do it, whatever that is. If you see a need, meet the need. If you see someone, talk to someone. If you can do a job, do the job. But do it as a zero. Aim to be the zero. Don't try to be noticed. In the things, you are known by your fruits. A tree is known by its fruit. If you're doing the little things, and you're just doing them because you want to serve the Lord and you want to be part of it and you want to get things done, well, that's great. That's the attitude we want. And that's the plus ones that God is looking for. And that is what makes you a good astronaut for God.